Hello and welcome to the 5th LiveG Lookahead on Tuesday 29th November 2022 at 5pm GMT. I hope everyone's well. Don't forget that it's LiveG's 8th birthday tomorrow, which is really exciting, so can't wait for that. As usual, this meeting is being hosted in the LiveG Lookahead channel on our Discord server and is additionally being streamed onto our YouTube channel, where a recording of the meeting will also be available after it has finished. Live subtitles are available by watching the stream via our YouTube channel. Questions and input can be given at any time. We aim to address all questions and input at the end of the meeting if we don't address them during the discussion. We ask that you are, if you're going to contribute, you must respect the LiveG contributors community rules, which can be found under the rules channel on Discord. And finally, by suggesting ideas, you agree to make those ideas available under the LiveG open source license. So with all that out the way, so just introduce ourselves. Seb, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm Seb. I occasionally make commits to the Adapt UI GitHub. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And we've got myself as well. Everyone knows me. James, who is the founder of LiveG and the developer. And we might have Tram Crazy on. Depends on how busy he is, but we'll see. He might join during the meeting. We'll just see about that. In fact, before we move on to our agenda actually today, I'd just like to mention that we now actually have a Raspberry Pi compute module 4 in our possession, which is really cool. Although unfortunately I haven't managed to get to play with it too much yet because the power adapter came with it, doesn't have a UK plug, so I need to probably pop out to, I don't know, Argos after this and try and buy a power adapter. But we've also had some success this week with getting LiveG OS on the Raspberry Pi 4 working, though we're still of course working on LiveG OS to get it up to version 0.3.0, so there's a few features that we'd like to add before we kind of release it for everyone to try. But yeah, I suppose we should move on to our agenda. So firstly, we have use cases for LiveG Proton modularity with me, James. Having discussed about the design of the LiveG Proton in our previous episode, we talk about what modular devices we should build that can connect to the Proton to enhance its hardware functionality. Next up, after that, we'll have designing decentralized cloud storage with Tram Crazy. Although I might have to cover for him, depends on if he's on. So we'll be discussing about how we should architect a decentralized cloud storage system that lets users turn their devices into networked file storage accessible over the internet. We'll be giving an overview of our current plans and any refinements to be made to our current design. And finally, we'll be planning our roadmap for LiveG OS. So with builds of LiveG OS for Raspberry Pi and PinePhone nearing closer to completion, we'll be looking at what will be next for LiveG OS to further expand its feature set and make a more useful operating system for daily use. We'll be planning what will be going ahead basically into our next release of LiveG OS. So on to our first item, onto our agenda. Use cases for planning LiveG Proton modularity. Now, we've chatted briefly in the last meeting, as I said before about this, about possibility of having like a modular system for the LiveG Proton. And we've also had a bit of a chat on Discord as well about what we could do and how we could implement some of the modules. So I've got a list here actually of a few modules which could be really cool to have connected to LiveG Proton computer, and not to forget that, you know, having modularity in the first place, being able to connect basically modules to your computer would be somewhat of a unique sales product that would differentiate us from other PCs out there. Although the connection will mainly be over USB, so I mean you could use modules with other computers. So some of the ideas that we've had is an oscilloscope module. So basically you'd have a module where you can plug in cables to be able to analyze signals from any kind of electronic device. I've seen that a similar design has been implemented using the Raspberry Pi Pico, so it shouldn't be too hard to implement this. I think it'd be quite cool, especially for kind of the maker community and early adopters of the LiveG Proton. They're probably going to be quite interested in the hardware, so I think that could be really cool. So it shouldn't be too hard to integrate either with existing designs out there, and we can make it properly spec'd, just like the professional oscilloscopes that you can get. And of course, you'll be able to kind of view like oscilloscope graphs, on the Proton's interface on LiveG OS, which would be really nice that you can analyze it. I don't know, screenshot it and show graphs to other people over the internet and stuff. I think that'd be cool.
Why, hello.
After that, oh, hello, Tram Crazy. Good to hear from you. I'm glad you joined actually, because you'll be discussing after this agenda item. But I was just saying before you joined is some of the kind of ideas for modules that we could add to LiveG Proton. So we're thinking possibly like an oscilloscope module. I think we've chatted about this in the Discord, but yeah, basically just discussing about how we could have like an oscilloscope which connects up to LiveG Proton, and then you'll be able to access the signal data in LiveG OS basically. After that one, I think Tram Crazy, you mentioned this one, a GPIO kind of module. So basically, when you connect it, I mean, do you want to talk about it actually? Now that you're here.
Yeah, so I don't know whether you've talked about the spec for the add-on modules at all, but we were kind of thinking we could either do a kind of USB. We were probably thinking like a USB type connection for the add-on modules. So we thought we could just put a Raspberry Pi Zero into this GPIO breakout module, and then do something with the software. There is software for it already, but do something with LiveG OS to make it more user-friendly, so that when that GPIO breakout is on, it sends the GPIO signals through the USB and out through the Raspberry Pi Zero, which is doable easily. It is something that people do with Raspberry Pis, but I think it would be quite cool because then we could use the GPIO on the actual Proton for other stuff.
Yeah. Especially like if we reserve some of the GPIO ourselves for the onboard GPIO for the CM4, then that's going to be quite useful. But if we have GPIO breakout which connects to, I don't know, Pi Zero or Pi Pico or something, that'd be really cool to be able to let people access those kind of pins. I was actually written down here that it could be quite useful for home automation. Whether or not you'd want LiveG Protons just scattered around your house, and maybe you could have like a server rack with one on. We could potentially have like a relay part of the GPIO modules where you'll be able to plug in, I don't know, a 230 volt AC connection, and you'll be able to, I don't know, control lights or something with them. I think that'd be a cool idea.
Also, rack mount LiveG Proton is happening.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. We could try and make it so, yeah.
Mac Mini one, I'm not going to let you launch a Mac Mini one without simultaneously launching a rack mount option at the same time.
I think we'd be able to make like a rack mount where you can fit the LiveG Proton into it, and then it connects somehow. And you could have the possibility of connecting multiple Protons in one rack mount. I think maybe that could work. I don't know.
Or we could have a rack mount that has like the Proton part on one side, and then you can slot a LiveG Proton add-on board into the other side.
That'd be a cool idea. Yeah, if we're going to go modular, I think that could be really cool. Yeah, kind of have them side by side rather than stacked if you're going to go for the server option. Yeah. Another a final module that I'd like to mention. I think Seb, you could be quite interested in this one actually. Is a TV box module. So we could have like a DVB-T or a DVB-T2 receiver. So basically, the coaxial cable which comes out of your wall to receive television signals. And then we could set it up. Yeah.
Very quickly, something that's absolutely urgent and not at all, well, just for Ezekiel's knowledge, we've been talking about these absolutely awful Windows 11 videos that have been on the Windows YouTube channel.
Oh,
I
yeah?
have now an official response from Microsoft to one of my comments on the videos.
Great.
And in a sarcastic way, I wrote,
Yeah.
"Oh dear me, these just keep getting better because all the videos are so awful." And they replied from Microsoft Windows' official account,
What?
"Thank you very much. We're certainly doing the best we can. Blue love heart."
You know what I think about Microsoft? I think not to, directly criticise them too much, but I think they could probably improve on their marketing. Some of it is a bit cringe, in my opinion. That's just me, though.
Oh yeah, have you seen the Meet Windows 11 easier to game video?
No, I haven't. You need to send me a link later on. Honestly,
Has just put the comment that I got a reply to in the chat there. But anyway,
oh, nice.
back to LiveG.
Yeah. Well, it's all kind of related. I mean, as another tech company, we're a tech org as well. So yeah, with like the TV box module for the LiveG Proton, I think that'd be quite cool to be able to convert your Proton into a TV box, basically. So, I mean, I know that smart TVs are quite prevalent now in that you do have all that functionality built into a TV, but you're not necessarily going to get a smart TV that's built into the LiveG ecosystem just yet. So, if you could plug your Proton into your TV's HDMI and then use your Proton as a TV box where you'll be able to stream anything, and also be able to access streams from other devices over our planned cloud storage system, I think that'd be a really cool feature. I mean, Seb, you've got a Raspberry Pi which connects to a TV signal system. I mean, I don't know too much about it, but I know you've kind of done that, I think, before.
Yeah. I've actually been thinking about doing something like that, but obviously
Yeah.
will work much better.
I think that.
But yeah, I've
that'd
got
be-
it because I want to connect to it wirelessly because the cable ends at the other end of my
Ooh.
house, so I can't really access it.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think it'd definitely be possible then. I mean, if a Raspberry Pi
I
can
think it's
do
a really
it,
good idea.
if a Raspberry
Yeah.
Pi can do it, then we can do it. Because
Yep, feel
I
free
mean,
to borrow
seeing it
my-
based off. Yeah,
Raspberry Pi thing.
it'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I think that'd be an interesting idea to kind of pursue. Again, it contributes to
Yeah, for sure.
potential features that we can market to people, I suppose, rather than just being another bland computer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I think that's about it on the module front. We've got a few ideas already. Unless anyone else has any other module ideas, you can always post it to Lookahead Ideas channel for future conversations about that. But we'll move on to our second item on our agenda, which is designing centralized cloud storage. Tram Crazy, you know a bit about this. Would you mind giving like an overview of what we've been thinking of doing?
Yes, well, this started, I believe it was last year when James. Well, we first came up with Neuron last year, which was going to be our amazing Node.js-based LiveG cloud storage. But then, James, you decided that you wanted to go decentralized. So then you kind of came up with this thing that I still don't really understand, where the files are floating around in the ether, but you can always access them.
Yeah.
And
So you're
So
probably
then-
referring to this diagram here.
well, yeah, that, but also the thing you made last year, the Neuron source code that's on GitHub.
Oh yeah.
That you tried to explain to me. But then I said, oh yeah, LiveG Cloud. And then 2 hours later, James hits me back with a full block diagram of how he thinks we should do it. I mean,
Yeah, pretty much.
so I've been trying to work out what this diagram means. I mean, I do know really. So is it that like a web server, like a website, acts as a client, so anyone could like run a client or build a client, like their own custom client, right?
Yeah.
So someone could theoretically make like, say, a CLI based client for it, or someone could make like an API client or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Or they could just like use our implementation of a client. So I suppose it's a bit like the Fediverse, where you've got like Mastodon, which is kind of a client for accessing the Fediverse, but then there's also like YouTube and different things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then there's Neuron, which is your cloud instance, but then so the files, are they stored on your Neuron instance?
So I'll give you a bit of a rundown. So yeah, you're right about the static web server basically providing like a UI and everything which users use to interact with LiveG Cloud. So yeah, you're right that like instances, you can create any kind of format of instance, whether or not it's on the CLI or it's on the web or whatever. Now Neuron is mainly to hold kind of user data and stuff, so that's basically just our system for managing user accounts and various data connected to those accounts. So that's not necessarily files, it's mainly just files is actually managed by the third bit, which is the LiveG Cloud Drive Manager. I'll come on to that in a moment. But Neuron mainly just just provides an API which the static kind of LiveG Cloud client can use, and then that will be used to authenticate users and ensure that they can access the right files. And what this does is, if a user wants to view a file, they visit the static web server here, they authenticate, and then later on, when they want to access a file, they need to connect to the file storage system. So the file storage system, I know it's a bit confusing because all these different bits which sound similar, but the file storage system will basically be able to run on any old device which users can control. So for example, LiveG Proton. I mean, you could run it on the LiveG Prism if you really wanted to, but I mean, why not, I suppose. So basically, your files are on a device which you can control and you can keep in your house, connected to the internet 24/7, basically. So instead of us being responsible for all your files, you're responsible for all your files, and we'll just be responsible for ensuring that you have an account on our system so you can access it from anywhere on the internet.
The whole accessing from anywhere on the internet, is that like an encrypted tunnel, almost a bit like Grok or something like that? The way that it accesses from the Neuron server to your file storage? Or how does that work?
Kind of. Well, I was thinking originally like using something like Grok kind of setup, like a tunnel system. Although it might be a bit tricky with our current web server specs to be able to keep everyone online and maintain all those connections at once. So what happens is that instead of that, if a client wants to request a file from a cloud drive from anywhere on the internet, it has to go to Neuron and go, okay, I've got this drive I want to access at this address. So your address will be like this. So I don't know, liveg.tech or liveg.me my drive / and then the file name. So Neuron will go, okay, I'm going to resolve that address into a WebRTC ID. So WebRTC is used to communicate directly between the user and the drive, the device which has the drive in it. So you go to Neuron, you give the Neuron the drive address, it returns a WebRTC ID which you connect to be able to talk to the drive itself and access files. That's basically how it's going to be done. So it's more of a peer-to-peer kind of connection when you establish it.
Yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense.
It makes a bit more sense. Yeah.
But
okay, good.
Based on that LiveG Cloud thing, linking back to the Proton add-ons, how about like a multi-bay hard drive add-on or like multi-bay M.2 add-on for using your Proton as a NAS? Because that can work with LiveG Cloud.
That would work really well, because then you can go beyond the 2 terabyte maximum that will provide you if you're going to buy a LiveG Proton. You'll be able to connect, external storage basically. I don't know, as like a RAID system maybe. and then I mean theoretically you'd be able to connect any external storage and then make that a LiveG Cloud drive maybe. Yeah, if we provide a module which gives you more storage, basically, I think that would be really cool. Especially when you consider, like, when you look at the Mac Mini, you can't really replace the storage in it and expand it to a higher amount if you really wanted to. I believe you have to buy a new one, so it's a win for us.
Yeah, now except from the Mac Pro, which is probably going to be discontinued soon anyway, any Apple computer that you want to replace the storage in, you can't.
Yeah,
you can't even
much.
get them to upgrade it in the shop. And
no.
In the Mac Studio, it's connected like a similar interface to an M.2 SSD, but only the flash chips are on the actual SSD board and the controller's built into the CPU. So it doesn't work if you swap it anyway, because it doesn't know where any of the data is. And on most of the laptops, the SSD, the flash chips are actually soldered on right next to the CPU, so there's no way to change that. And it's just utterly ridiculous.
And not to mention, like, storage drive IDs being, kind of tied to the device that they originated on as well, so you can't do it you can't do a replacement of drives that easily anymore. What are Apple thinking? Meanwhile, with us, I think it'd be good to be able to. I mean, we've already made a good start allowing users to be able to replace their NVMe. I think it'll be NVMe, won't it? M.2 drive in LiveG Proton. So this is definitely a good step up with that idea.
Yeah, absolutely NVMe. One thing we will have to work out with allowing them to replace it is like perhaps we could ship the replacement NVMe drives ourselves with like an adapter so they can copy their files over first and have a utility on the Proton that can be used for swapping your storage drive, because that can be a bit of a pain because you have to copy all the data over onto the new drive, like the whole operating system and stuff. And there are easy ways to do it. It's just for the average consumer, they would want, here's a USB adapter that I just have, or even like a little add-on board for the Proton. I slot my new drive in here. I click this button on my computer, leave it for an hour, it transfers all my files, and now I can put the new one in my computer. It's just easier.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you can easily get like USB adapters for NVMe, I believe. So it'd basically be similar to that, really. Then be able to transfer the current OS to the new drive, and that would work pretty well. I think people would like us for that. Finally, I'd like to mention about the inclusion of this third-party app thing. So when you look at things like Google Drive, for example, you can authenticate it with there's thousands of apps out there. Like, let me try and think of one. I think you might have heard of Draw.io, so that allows you to do kind of flowcharts and things, and that connects to Google Drive, for example, to be able to store Draw.io files into Google Drive. So we'll basically have a similar thing here. Essentially, the end user device communicates with Neuron initially to sign in. When you visit the third-party app, the app loads, of course, and then the app will go, okay, I want permission to access this user's account, of course. So then we redirect to a page in the cloud client, which then talks to Neuron when you authenticate. Neuron will provide an app token, and then the app can use that token to communicate directly with Neuron itself. So that'll be quite useful. There's actually a lot of tokens here. So you got the user token, so to be able to authenticate as a user. You got the app token, which allows apps to be able to talk to Neuron, of course. There's a few more as well. I believe there's a permission token, so you can be able to access cloud drive files. It's basically just a way of assigning permissions to people. There's a lot of complicated details which we'll be sorting out soon. But I think what we've got so far is pretty good. I think we'll move on from designing decentralized cloud storage now, because there's a lot about that. And we'll move on to our third one before we finish, which is planning our roadmap for LiveG OS. So I believe I have talked about this before, briefly at the end of a previous Lookahead meeting, but I'll probably elaborate a bit more on it this time, especially with our builds for the Raspberry Pi and even the Pine phone coming around the corner soon. So, as I previously discussed, it'd be good to kind of have a development feature focus for each release. So, for one release, you may be focusing on LiveG Cloud integration. For another release, it might be kind of focusing on improving localization. The next release might be on improving, mobile support and so on. So we should probably definitely adopt that kind of way of doing things, I suppose. That'd be quite good. And then what I've written here is any ideas for what should be our first focus after our current release cycle. So currently our release cycle is, of course, building multi-platform LiveG for the Raspberry Pi and Pine phone. But after that, I mean, what should we do really? Any ideas yourselves?
I think we kind of need to get LiveG first of all into a kind of almost more vaguely usable state as a desktop and mobile operating system for practical stuff. So I think we need to really get those core apps sorted out, on the mobile version, phone, calling, and
yeah, definitely.
some kind of on the desktop, just a simple text editor and all those kind of basic things that you really need before we start worrying about advanced cloud and stuff. I think we just need to get the fundamentals sorted out, really.
Definitely, I think we should save that kind of LiveG Cloud stuff until a future release, not necessarily short term just yet, because it's quite a complicated system. Is LiveG Cloud, of course, as we found out. But yeah, it's literally what my thoughts were when I wrote my plans. So yeah, it's probably best to start with being able to install web apps, and also adding in kind of pre-installed utility apps like file manager, text editor, phone app as you mentioned, especially because especially with Pine phone users, they're going to expect to be able to do the basic stuff like ringing people, because you never know, some people might already have a SIM card in their Pine phone when they're testing out iOS, so they may want to be able to receive incoming calls and things. So it's definitely an important kind of first step. And then, yeah, as you said, in future, a few releases down the line, maybe not the release after that one, but later on, maybe, I don't know, next year or something, we'll be able to start integrating LiveG Cloud. Do you think LiveG Cloud should be a thing that we integrate before or after we release the LiveG Proton to the public? Any ideas?
I don't think we necessarily need to worry about the cloud when we're first releasing the Proton. I think, as I said, I think the fundamentals are what we really need to think about.
Yeah.
And also getting a good working prototype of the Proton ready, because we've not done so much thinking about the hardware design yet.
Yeah, true.
And I know you've got... have you got any updates? Because I know you ordered those CM4 bits.
Yes, I have actually. I did mention this earlier. So I do have the CM4 now, which is really cool, and the IO board. I've got a power adapter, but unfortunately, because I shipped it from Germany, it's got an EU plug type, so it's not the Type G that you get in the UK, it's Type E. So I'll be going over to Argos later on, so as soon as this meeting's finished, to try and get an adapter. But hopefully I'll be able to get that running, because as you might have seen... Was Germany the only
place they had them in stock?
Argos... Sorry, what?
Was Germany the only country that had CM4s in stock on a website?
Yeah. So there's actually two suppliers from Germany. I tried to get one from one supplier in Germany, but they require some kind of verification process to ensure that you're not a scalper. But the other company which I went for was just fine. I managed to get a 8 gig of RAM version with 16 gigs eMMC, and obviously Wi-Fi, of course. The can't even say it now. The eMMC chip, I mean, wasn't really necessary, but because it was the only one in stock on rpilocator.com, I just, had one chance to buy it, so I went for it. So that's all good. Hopefully it works. I mean, considering I haven't tested it yet, but I'm sure we'll be fine. So yeah, really excited for that. And then down the line, we'll be able to make the LiveG Proton, set it to public, and hopefully by that stage, LiveG OS will be quite a stable and mature OS, I think. So yeah, very good. Anything else? Anyone else wants to add?
No, I think you've said everything.
Cool. Yeah, we've got we've got through quite a lot this meeting, so that's all pretty good. So yeah, that's our agenda for today. If you have any questions or input, then you're welcome to leave them in the Lookahead channel on Discord or via the live chat feature of YouTube. But that concludes today's episode of LiveG Lookahead. Our next meeting is scheduled on Tuesday the 6th of December 2022, or going into the new month, at 5 PM GMT. You can rewatch this meeting via the recording on our YouTube channel. That will be made available shortly, of course. But until then, thank you for attending. Don't forget to look out for our special LiveG 8th birthday celebration video coming out tomorrow. See ya!